Behind the glowing lights of Greenwood Mall lurked a darkness no one could see. What began as a simple shopping trip twisted into a nightmare when Captain Denise Carter, a decorated officer and symbol of justice, was suddenly branded a thief. False accusations from security, the cold voice of a store manager, and the brutal grip of notorious Officer James Raines all collided in a carefully designed trap. But Denise had no idea this wasn't just about humiliating her. It was the first crack in a sinister machine feeding on her community, a conspiracy that would shake the entire city to its core. If this moment felt intense, prepare yourself, because what comes next is darker, more dangerous, and far more powerful than anything you've seen so far. Subscribe to Black Battles and hit the bell icon so you never miss our latest powerful stories. Captain Denise Carter was no stranger to danger. For more than 20 years, she had worn the badge, patrolled the streets, and fought battles most people never saw. In her community, she wasn't just known as a police officer. She was a role model, a voice of reason, and a woman who carried the weight of justice with unshakable pride. Off-duty, though, she craved simple, ordinary moments. Shopping at Greenwood Mall on a quiet Saturday evening was supposed to be one of those moments. The mall was buzzing with life. Families moved from store to store with shopping bags in their hands, teenagers laughed in the food court, and music echoed from the speakers overhead. To the average eye, Greenwood Mall was just another place of convenience, a symbol of suburban comfort. But Denise noticed things others didn't. The way certain security guards lingered near groups of black shoppers, the sharp scrutinizing looks that trailed behind them. It wasn't the first time she had felt the undercurrent of hostility in the mall. But she had learned to shrug it off, or at least, she tried to. As she walked through a high-end clothing store, Denise picked out a scarf for her sister and a jacket for herself. She wasn't in uniform today, just jeans and a sweater, blending in like any other shopper. Yet, even without the badge, there was something about her posture, her presence, that radiated authority. It was this same aura that unsettled some people, and it was about to put her in the crosshairs of something much darker than she imagined. While Denise browsed through the aisles, she caught the store manager whispering to a security guard, both of them staring directly at her. She raised an eyebrow but kept moving. She had dealt with profiling before, but she couldn't have known how far they were willing to take it this time. Minutes later, as she headed toward the register, 2 guards blocked her path. "Ma'am," one of them said with a stiff, practiced tone, "we're going to need you to come with us." Denise frowned, clutching the jacket draped over her arm. "Excuse me? For what?" The store manager stepped forward, his expression hard and accusing. "We saw you conceal items in your bag. Shoplifting is a serious offense." The words hit her like a slap. Shoplifting? She glanced down at her small handbag, empty except for her wallet and phone. Shock rippled through her, followed quickly by anger. "You've got the wrong person. I haven't taken anything." But the guards didn't flinch. Their hands moved closer to their belts, their stances tightening. Around them, shoppers began to stop and stare. Phones came out, recording. Denise's pulse quickened, not from guilt, but from the sting of humiliation. She was Captain Carter, respected in her department, yet here she was being treated like a common criminal in front of strangers. What Denise didn't realize was that this moment wasn't random. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the first move in a carefully orchestrated scheme, a scheme designed not only to break her, but to expose the hidden machinery of corruption grinding beneath Greenwood Mall's polished floors. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, whispers bouncing off the polished walls of the store. Shoppers craned their necks, recording the scene with eager curiosity, their phones capturing a moment that Denise already knew would be twisted against her. She stood tall, her years of training urging her to remain calm. But inside her chest a storm raged. "I said I haven't stolen anything," Denise repeated, her voice steady but sharp, like steel cutting through the air. The store manager crossed his arms, his smugness radiating like poison. "We have evidence. The cameras don't lie." "Evidence?" Denise's eyes narrowed. She hadn't touched a single item beyond the scarf and jacket she carried in plain view. This wasn't just profiling, it was fabrication. And as the guards closed in on her, she realized they weren't looking for the truth. They were following a script. Before she could respond, a heavy hand gripped her shoulder. The crowd gasped. Denise spun to see the towering figure of Officer James Raines. His reputation preceded him. Stories of excessive force, of targeting young black men and women in the neighborhood, whispered in community meetings, but ignored by the department. Now, his cold, gray eyes fixed on her with something between triumph and cruelty. "Well, well," Raines said, his voice low but dripping with contempt. "Didn't expect to find one of our own here, did I?" Denise clenched her jaw. "You've made a mistake. Let me go." But Raines only tightened his grip, twisting her arm behind her back in a practiced move that sent pain shooting up her shoulder. The crowd erupted in outrage. Some shouted for him to stop, others muttered insults under their breath. Phones kept recording. "You're under arrest for shoplifting," Raines declared, pulling out the cuffs. Denise's heart pounded, not from fear, but from fury. She could feel the humiliation searing into her skin as the cold metal snapped around her wrists. For the first time in her career, she was on the other side of the law, branded a criminal by lies. "Check my bag," she demanded. "There's nothing there!" Raines ignored her, nodding to the guards. Together they pushed her toward the exit. Shoppers stepped aside, some shaking their heads, others whispering, "That's a cop, isn't it? They're arresting a cop?" The shame burned hotter. Denise wasn't just being humiliated, she was being dismantled piece by piece in front of her own community. As they dragged her out of the store, flashes from phones and murmurs followed like shadows. Denise's mind raced. This wasn't just an overzealous arrest. This was deliberate. She could see it in the way Raines smirked, in the store manager's satisfied expression, in the guard's mechanical compliance. Something bigger was happening here, something designed to trap her. And though the cuffs bound her wrists, her instincts as a seasoned officer told her one undeniable truth. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. The holding cell smelled of cold steel and disinfectant, its silence broken only by the occasional shuffle of footsteps from a guard in the hallway. Captain Denise Carter sat on the narrow bench, her wrists sore from the cuffs that had dug into her skin. She stared at the concrete floor, her mind replaying the arrest like a broken film reel. Every sneer, every accusation, every snap of the cameras around her. For a decorated officer, the humiliation cut deeper than the pain. She had dedicated her life to protecting the law, and now that same law was being twisted like a weapon against her. Yet something about the entire ordeal gnawed at her. It was too polished, too rehearsed. The store manager's words, the guard's actions, even Officer Raines' appearance, it all felt staged. Her instincts screamed at her. This wasn't a mistake. It was a setup. Hours later, the clanging of keys broke the stillness. A guard appeared with a smirk, dropping a thick packet of papers onto the bench beside her. "Sign these and you can go home. Plead guilty. Accept probation." Easy way out, Denise froze. Probation? For a crime she hadn't committed? Her eyes skimmed the papers, legal jargon, fines, and an agreement to enter a private probation program managed not by the city, but by a company she had never heard of. Her stomach turned as the numbers sank in. Hundreds of dollars in monthly fees, mandatory check-ins, and penalties for non-compliance. It wasn't just punishment, it was business. She looked up at the guard. "What happens if I don't sign?" His grin widened. "Then you sit. The trial will take months. Your reputation? Ruined. Your badge? Gone. Honestly, most people just sign. It's cheaper that way." The words chilled her. Most people just sign. How many others had been funneled into this machine? How many innocent men and women, terrified of jail, had given in to the pressure? When the guard left, Denise leaned back against the cold wall, her mind racing. She thought of the young black men she had seen dragged into the system, their stories dismissed as excuses. Was this the pipeline they'd all been forced through? A partnership between mall security, corrupt officers, and this private probation company? It was a machine built to grind people down and bleed them for profit. And now, they wanted to make her their next example. Denise clenched her fists. If she signed those papers, she'd be complicit. She'd be silenced. But if she resisted, she'd be risking everything, her career, her freedom, even her safety. In that moment, she knew one thing for certain. They had underestimated her. She wasn't just another victim. She was Captain Denise Carter, and she wasn't going to let this system swallow her whole. Somewhere beyond these walls, she would need allies. And when the time came, she would tear open the shadows of Greenwood Mall and expose the rot festering beneath its glossy surface. Denise's release from the holding cell was not freedom. It was a calculated move. She could feel it in the way the paperwork was processed, in the smug look on Officer Raines's face as she walked past him. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes glittering with satisfaction. "See you in court, Captain," he sneered. "Unless you're smart enough to plead guilty." Denise didn't respond. She knew silence could sometimes be the sharpest blade, but inside, her fury burned. They thought she would fold, that she would bow to their fabricated system. They didn't know her at all. That evening, Denise drove straight to the home of Carla Johnson, her longtime friend and one of the city's most relentless defense attorneys. Carla opened the door to find Denise standing there, bruised wrists hidden beneath her sleeves, her expression hard, but her eyes weighted with exhaustion. "What happened to you?" Carla asked, her tone sharp with alarm. Denise stepped inside, her voice low but steady. "They tried to make me sign probation papers for a crime I didn't commit. This isn't just about me, Carla. There's something bigger at play here." Carla listened intently as Denise laid out the details. The false accusation, the staged arrest, the probation documents tied to a private company. Carla's face grew darker with every word. "This isn't just profiling. This is racketeering. They're running a pipeline for profit." "I need proof," Denise said firmly. "And I can't get it alone," Carla nodded. "Then we'll find it. But we'll need someone who can shine a light on this outside the courtroom." That was when Denise thought of Maya Lopez. Maya wasn't just a journalist. She was fearless, with a reputation for exposing corruption no matter how deep it ran. Reaching her was a risk. Putting her in the crosshairs of this conspiracy could endanger her. But without someone to broadcast the truth, all the evidence in the world could be buried. The next day, Denise and Carla met Maya at a small cafe tucked away from the city's bustle. Maya arrived with her notebook and recorder in hand, her sharp eyes scanning Denise's face before she even sat down. "You don't usually call me unless it's serious," Maya said. "It's more than serious," Denise replied, lowering her voice. She described everything, how the mall security worked in tandem with Raines, how the probation company profited from false pleas, how hundreds of people could already be trapped in the same cycle. Maya's pen didn't stop moving. "If what you're saying is true, then this is bigger than a scandal. This is organized exploitation." "Which means," Carla added, "they'll do everything to bury it. We'll need more than stories. We'll need hard evidence, financial records, internal memos, video proof." Maya leaned back, a fire sparking in her eyes. "Then let's find it. But understand this, you're declaring war on powerful people. They won't hesitate to fight back." Denise glanced at Carla, then back at Maya. Fear lingered in her chest, but determination outweighed it. She had faced criminals before, but this enemy wore suits and badges. Still, one truth echoed louder than the risk. If they didn't fight now, the machine would keep grinding innocent lives to dust. The deeper Denise, Carla and Maya pushed into the shadows of Greenwood Mall. The clearer the danger became. What began as whispered suspicions was now unraveling into hard, undeniable patterns. Maya's late-night digging revealed dozens of names. Ordinary shoppers arrested at the mall, charged with petty theft, and then funneled into the same private probation system Denise had been offered. Many had paid thousands in fees before their cases were quietly closed. "This isn't a coincidence," Maya said one night, spreading files across Carla's office table. "This is systematic. They target black shoppers, accuse them of theft, and then force probation. The mall, the company, the police, everyone profits." Denise studied the documents, her jaw tight. Each name was a person, a story, a life bent under the weight of injustice. "They're running a business," she murmured. and the merchandise they're selling is people's freedom. But exposing the truth wasn't as simple as uncovering records. It came at a cost. The threat started small. An anonymous call at Denise's house, a car that followed Maya late at night, a brick hurled through Carla's office window. But soon, the intimidation grew bolder. One evening, Denise returned home to find her front door ajar. Inside, the lights flickered, and her living room was a wreck. Drawers pulled open, furniture overturned, papers scattered across the floor. On the wall, in thick black spray paint, were the words, "Stop digging." Her stomach dropped. This wasn't just about silencing her. It was a warning. They knew where she lived, and they weren't afraid to come inside. The police response was predictably dismissive. "Looks like vandalism," one officer said with a shrug. "Could be kids." Denise locked eyes with him, rage simmering. She could see the lie in his casual posture, the way he avoided her gaze. He knew. They all knew. That night, sitting in her car outside Carla's office, Denise admitted what had been gnawing at her. "They want me to break, to give in before I get too close. But if I stop now, then every one of those names in those files stays trapped. I can't let that happen." Carla reached over, steadying her hand. "Then we go forward. No matter what." Maya leaned against the hood of her car, notebook in hand. Her eyes were tired, but her voice was firm. "I've faced powerful people before, but this feels different. More dangerous. Still, if we don't tell their story, who will?" In that moment, the three women understood the gravity of their path. They weren't just chasing corruption, they were walking into the lion's den. And every step forward meant a higher price. Denise took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. She had faced criminals armed with guns and knives, but this enemy was armed with power, wealth, and silence. That made them even more dangerous. And yet, in her heart, she knew one thing: silence was no longer an option. For weeks, Denise, Carla, and Maya worked in secret, each step a dangerous dance between discovery and exposure. Their investigation stretched from the polished storefronts of Greenwood Mall to dimly lit back offices, from whispered conversations with frightened employees to dusty archives that corporate lawyers thought no one would ever touch. It was Maya who first secured the break they needed. A former security guard, trembling as he spoke, handed her a flash drive. "I can't keep this," he whispered. "If they find out, I'm finished." On it were surveillance clips, grainy, time-stamped videos showing the same disturbing pattern: black shoppers being pulled aside, accused without evidence, and escorted into back rooms where papers were shoved in front of them. Some signed under duress. Others resisted and were dragged away in handcuffs. When Denise saw the footage, her chest tightened. "It's a conveyor belt," she said, her voice heavy. "They're feeding people straight into the system." Carla, meanwhile, managed to obtain leaked memos from inside the probation company. The language was clinical, almost cold: projections of revenue, quotas for arrests, and coded references to high-yield demographics. Every word was a nail in the coffin of their supposed legitimacy. But the most damning discovery came from Denise herself. Using her badge and the trust she still carried within certain corners of the department, she gained access to sealed financial ledgers. The numbers were staggering: millions funneled through the probation company. Kickbacks disguised as service fees, and a direct link to the mall's corporate owners. "They built a machine," Carla said, laying the documents out across her desk. "And every piece of it was designed to profit off suffering. Yet the danger escalated with each revelation. One night, as Maya drove home, a dark SUV tailed her for miles, headlights glaring in her rearview mirror. Only when she pulled into a crowded gas station did it peel away. Another time, Denise noticed an unmarked car parked outside her home for 3 nights in a row. When she approached it, the car sped off without a word. Still, they pressed on. Fear was real, but so was the evidence. Together, they compiled a dossier, a mountain of proof that told the story of corruption in vivid, undeniable detail. Videos, financial records, testimonies, internal memos, it was all there. Enough to destroy careers, dismantle institutions, and shake the city to its core. But how to release it? If they handed it to the wrong official, it would vanish. If they leaked it prematurely, the system might bury it before it gained traction. It was Maya who suggested the unthinkable. "The city council meeting," she said. "It's public. It's recorded. If we put it all out there in front of cameras, they can't bury it. They can't silence us." Denise hesitated, the weight of risk pressing down on her. Going public meant no turning back. It meant making herself the face of the fight, the target of the machine's rage. But then she remembered the faces in the files, the people arrested, humiliated, broken by the same cycle she had escaped. She clenched her fists. "Then we take it to the council," Denise said. "We show the city the truth, and we don't stop until the machine burns." The night of the city council meeting carried the weight of history. The chamber was crowded, every seat filled with more people pressed against the walls and spilling into the hallway. Tension rippled through the air. Some had come to witness another routine session, but many had heard whispers of something bigger, something explosive. Denise Carter walked to the front with steady steps, though her heart thundered in her chest. Dressed in her captain's uniform, her bruises long-healed but her spirit sharpened, she stood not just as an officer, but as a survivor. Behind her sat Carla Johnson, calm and defiant, and Maya Lopez clutching her notebook like a sword. They were not alone. The very people who had been trapped in the mall's pipeline were scattered among the crowd, ready to see their voices finally heard. The council chair tapped the gavel. "Captain Carter, you have the floor." Denise inhaled, her eyes sweeping over the officials seated before her. Some complicit, some oblivious, all about to be confronted with the truth. "Members of the council," she began, her voice firm but emotional, "I stand here not only as a police officer but as a citizen of this city. I come with evidence of a system designed to exploit the very people it is meant to serve." Whispers stirred in the room. Denise lifted a stack of documents and gestured toward a projector screen Maya had set up. For years, Greenwood Mall has operated as more than a shopping center. It has been a trap. Security officers, in collusion with local law enforcement and a private probation company, have targeted black shoppers under false accusations. They are arrested, coerced, and funneled into a cycle of probation fees, fees that enrich the company, the mall, and those who protect them. Gasps echoed. Denise clicked the remote. The screen lit up with surveillance footage, grainy clips of shoppers being dragged into back rooms, some crying, some pleading, none holding stolen goods. Murmurs grew louder, some of anger, some of disbelief. She continued, her voice unshaken. "These aren't isolated incidents. They are deliberate. Here are internal memos." Carla handed copies to the council members, "where the probation company sets quotas for arrests, calling black shoppers high-yield demographics. And here," she held up another file, "are the financial ledgers. Millions of dollars funneled through this system, directly linked to the mall's corporate owners." Council members shifted uncomfortably. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled furiously. Suddenly, a voice erupted from the back of the chamber. "Lies!" It was Officer James Raines, storming forward, his face red with fury. "She's fabricating this to cover her own misconduct." But before he could approach, Maya rose, holding a USB drive high. "Then explain this," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. She inserted it into the projector. A video played, Raines himself, body camera footage he had tried to bury, violently arresting Denise in the mall despite her compliance. His own voice echoed in the chamber. "Another one for the books. They'll plead guilty eventually." The room erupted. Shouts of outrage, demands for justice, the clatter of order breaking. Council members shouted for calm, but the people were no longer silent. They surged forward, chanting Denise's name, demanding accountability. The council chair banged the gavel, pale-faced. "This matter will be investigated immediately. Officer Raines, you are placed under suspension pending arrest. All contracts with the probation company are hereby frozen." Police officers in the chamber moved to detain Raines as he cursed and resisted. The cameras captured every moment, the fall of a corrupt enforcer and the rise of truth. In the chaos, Denise felt a hand slip into hers. Carla on one side, Maya on the other. Together they stood, not as individuals but as a force. The people's chants filled the chamber. louder, stronger, unstoppable. In the days that followed, arrests spread like wildfire. Mall executives, probation officials, even city officers who had signed off on false charges. The mall was stripped of its power, its security dismantled, its polished glass storefronts now symbols of a failed empire. But for Denise, the true victory wasn't the collapse of buildings or businesses. It was the rise of her community. For the first time, they weren't just victims, they were survivors, fighters, voices that could no longer be silenced. Standing before a crowd at a rally weeks later, Denise spoke with the same fire that had carried her through every trial. They wanted us to stay quiet, to stay broken. But we are neither. We are here, we are strong, and we will never stop demanding justice, the crowd roared. And in that moment, Denise Carter was no longer just a captain, no longer just a survivor of profiling. She was a symbol of resistance, a beacon of courage and a reminder that even in the darkest machine of corruption, light could break through.